I don't give a what works. I don't care if it worked. If it worked and it gave me 50% of the outcomes that I could have gotten, I'm mad.
I have to get you results as soon as possible. I don't want you to be stuck with me for 6 months and still not be able to do a squat if that's your goal.
My father died at 56 of diabetes. I'm not going to go out that way.
I'll keep assessing myself until I found the root cause, or what's causing it. And then I would go back and then, most of those progressions, first I tried them on myself.
The reason why I loved the Netflix model is I was like, that's the way education should be. It should be affordable enough per month that you can keep it and learn at your own pace continuously.
Thank you once again for joining me. And we've already done the intro, but just once again, when I started my university, my professor told me to come up with my training philosophy. And that's when I found you. And it was something that really connected. And it's an honor to have you today. So
thank you.
Today, we're just going to go over, because the kind of clients I get are they've tried everything. So I'm getting the frustrated people that have gone to physios, chiros, doctors, and after years of therapy, they're still not fixed. At one point in their lives, they were active, they had their movement, they were playing sports, and now when they're getting back into it, they just can't. So I just wanted to talk about the system, where are we failing, what happened there?
Okay. Well, I think starting off, I don't think the system's failed, right? I think the system is continuously improving, although I have my reservations about the generation that more or less just graduated. I think that particular group somehow ended up being a lot more contrarian and a lot more dismissive than was justified. But set that aside, generally things are getting better, right? Got to take a big picture view. Generally, things are getting better. Now, does that mean things are perfect? Absolutely not. Are we way more aware of our failures than we used to be? Yeah, thanks, social media, for putting every failure on blast for every physical therapist who didn't help somebody. You have to think about these problems in terms of percentages. And, I think that is let's put it this way. If COVID taught us one thing, it's that people don't like to think about statistics. Right? They don't get it. The vaccine kills quote unquote 6 people and COVID kills millions of people, but it's the vaccine we should stop giving. Okay. I don't think you understand the statistics there, but okay, we'll leave that alone. Physical therapy works the same way, where it's physical therapists we're not perfect, And physical therapy is not deterministic. It's not like if you do X, you get Y. It's all probabilistic, right? Good as I may or may not be as a physical therapist, even I don't have 100% batting average. You know what I'm saying? I don't get up there and just knock it out of the park every time, right? So we have to start thinking about probabilities, right? And that's the first start. We have to realize that physical therapy in general is not going to work every time. Some physical therapists probably have better percentages than others as far as how many they treat. We can say that's the difference between a good and a bad therapist, is the percentage of people they treat optimally. I think that's the starting point. Now, from that jumping off point, we could probably have a conversation about how could we improve practice. And I think there's a lot of room for development there.
Yeah, no, totally. I totally agree with you on the percentages and the probabilities there. What do you think that somebody, I'm not a physical therapist, I'm a personal trainer.
Right.
Because I've watched a lot of your content and I've taken a lot of your courses, so I can guide people into getting better and getting back to movement again, doing things that they enjoyed. What's one thing that, the physios or the clinicians that they can do, or they should start doing a bit more than what they're doing now to improve those probabilities, to improve their averages?
Okay, so there's a few things here. One simple thing is to understand that rehab and conditioning are not the same thing.
Mhm.
So generally speaking, when a patient comes in to see a physical therapist, we're trying to get them out of pain. And that pain is more or less limited to pain during activities of daily living.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you have knee pain and I can get you to the point where you can go up and down stairs without knee pain, as a physical therapist, more or less, and I'm making some generalities here, but like more or less, I've done my job. Okay. Now you
Yeah.
go back and you're like, well, I can't squat. As a physical therapist, I'm kind of going,
Yeah.
right now, depending on what I've actually been hired for now. Keep all of this in mind. Generally speaking, you got to realize that most people don't work out.
Mhm.
Physical therapists see the general population. So most of the population we see is not trying to get back to working out. They're just trying to be pain-free for activities of daily living, which becomes the bread and butter of most physical therapists.
Yeah.
Now, where most physical therapists could get a little better pretty quickly for those who are doing higher intensity activities is they need to start learning a little bit more about strength and conditioning so that they can help bridge that gap between being in pain during activities of daily living and trying to get back to the activity that they were doing beforehand, whether it's the gym, whether it's basketball, whether it's, soccer, whatever, right? So there is a gap there, right? And personal training, with things like corrective exercise under their belt, right? Like you can't treat pain as a personal trainer.
You can. Yeah. You have your scope of practice. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want that anyway.
Yeah.
It's a whole different bag of worms, right? Like,
Yeah.
but you can help people move better. You can help clean up movement patterns and then start loading them and reconditioning them so that they can get back to the sports they like, right? Like strength takes time, and sometimes we have to keep in mind that like physical therapists might not just be limited by what they get the most practice doing, which is getting people out of pain during activities of daily living. We're also often limited by the number of sessions we actually get.
Yeah.
Okay, like, so great, I get 10 sessions to get you out of pain. Does that mean I'm going to get you all your strength back so you can go back to squatting what you were squatting before? Maybe not. It might not even be possible. It might not be physiologically possible.
Yeah.
Right? Forget whether it was actually possible with my skill set. Is it even physiologically possible? So you got that bridge, right? And I think, personal trainers, they need to grab that corrective exercise piece because they can really, really help extend that movement optimization thing. And then I think physical therapists need to, think about getting a CPT, a certified personal trainer certification, and like learn some stuff about strength and conditioning because we don't get that in PT school. Don't think that physical therapists get any strength and conditioning in PT school. That's not true.
Okay.
In some programs, they might get some if they're more sports medicine based, but when we're in PT school, we have to learn about spinal cord, stroke, wound care, acute care, geriatrics, pediatrics. Like physical therapy is broad based.
Yeah.
And then you're going, well, why don't you know how to lift?
Because because
it's not what a physical therapist does for most of their profession. Right. So there's that piece. Now, where do we go from here? So I think the next thing in both fitness and physical therapy have to jump on this. And, this is where the Brookbush Institute leads the pack. And I say we lead the pack. That is not a flex. That is not something I'm particularly proud of. And I know I'm burying the lead here, but we need to get to evidence-based practice.
I agree.
Nobody is doing it comprehensively except for the Brookbush Institute. And I understand that it takes a lot of work to build everything from systematic reviews of all relevant research. But we have to adopt a scientific approach.
I agree.
There's so much data out there. There's so much research out there that until we started making these huge systematic reviews, nobody was doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Whatever, we've been working really hard on our CPT stuff, right, lately. So, we're going through the acute variables, right? How much rest do you need between sets? How many reps are you supposed to do per set? How many sets per muscle group per routine, right? Like all those variables we can change to optimize strength training outcomes. And like most of the acute variable tables we grew up with are wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's and let me soften that language just a little bit. It's kind of the way I look at artificial intelligence right now. It's like everything we learned in the past is what I call accurate adjacent, right? It's like not completely off the wall wrong. It's like almost right-ish if you squint, like,
Yeah.
like, could you get results with this? Yes, of course, but like this is optimal over here, right?
Mhm.
So, like I think rest between sets is a great example where it's like, we grew up learning that rest between sets was based on goal. If you wanted endurance, you had smaller rest per sets. And if you wanted power or strength, you needed more rest between sets. Well, the research actually shows almost the opposite. And that rest between sets is more dependent on the number of sets you're going to do, right? Like for that particular exercise or muscle group, like you can probably get away with like 2 minutes or a little less than 2 minutes between 1 and 2 sets, right? But then once you get to 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets, you really need like 2 to 3 minute rest periods between. And if you're doing power training, like max strength or power training where you're doing 1 to 5 reps, you actually don't need as much rest. So there's a perfect example of like, okay, the evidence was sitting there, right? Like the research was there.
Yeah.
Just nobody ever put it all together. Nobody ever sat down and went, okay, wait a second. Is this actually the way it should be done? Right? And it's like, could you get results with what we learned in the past? Yes, but there's a better way. And it's like right here.
Yeah. You have to be efficient, right? And there's a more efficient way. And that's exactly what I tell my clients. And I'm glad that you covered this already, because this was something that we were going to talk about a bit later. But yeah, so since we're on the topic, that's great. You covered it all.
One of the phrases I like is like people come back to me with, well, it worked for me. And I always come back with this very harsh statement. And I make it purposely harsh to get some attention here. I don't give a shit what works. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to know what works best. I don't care if it worked. If it worked and it gave me 50% of the outcomes that I could have gotten, I'm mad.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know, man, I'm getting a little older. I'm trying to stay on the basketball court. Like, I need all the help I can get. Like, what is the thing that's going to get me the absolute best possible outcomes? And that's what our patients and clients deserve. They don't deserve what worked for you. They deserve what is the best possible intervention they can get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The only way to do that is through evidence-based practice.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I get those too. Hey, I've been doing this and it makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. And when I present something that's evidence-based and I tell them that, hey, this could give you better results that will last a longer time.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't have to keep doing the things that you're doing right now forever. You can move on from these things. And sometimes people are stuck in the beliefs that, somebody has instilled in them, or they saw on social media or wherever it is. The other thing I was going to cover is most people will look at will change the perspective, not from physiotherapists, but from a CPT or a strength and conditioning coach. Sometimes, let's say, I have a knee injury and I go to a personal trainer and I tell them, hey, I want to go play cricket and I have this knee injury, and they'll just load me up without checking what's going on. There's no assessments done. They'll just push me. And if I can't do a squat, they'll be like, come on, push harder, go deeper. And they don't understand that it's really impossible to go there. What's something that they should change, or all the CPTs, because those are the kind of people I get. Hey, listen, this person made me do 50 push-ups where I couldn't even do one. Now I can't move my arms, I can't move.
Yeah, this is a tough one, right? Because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Like, that's not helping anything. And that's where I said this most recent generation of graduates, they took a contrarian position on everything, and it's obviously social media fueled. And it didn't benefit anybody, right? Like, it's one thing to be skeptical and to question why things are done and to try to learn. It's a whole nother thing to say that things don't work and force us to rehash settled science, right? You can't just load or strength your way out of injury. Like, that's not a thing, right? There's no, if you get stronger, will you reduce your risk of injury? Sure. But we also see professional athletes getting injured all the time. So some piece of the puzzle is missing there, right? And unfortunately, I think a lot of this, and I hope I don't offend too many people out there, but I think a lot of this comes from laziness and complacency. Like, if I say that X doesn't work, then I don't have to learn X, right? If I say that corrective exercise is bullshit, then I don't have to learn anatomy. I don't have to learn the overhead squat assessment. I don't have to learn corrective exercise. I don't have to practice this thing that's going to take me months or even years to get really good at. I can just be like, screw you, bro. All you need is squats. And I know how to do squats, right? Like, that's, whether it's intentional or unintentional, some of that complacency, I believe, is at the base of this contrarian movement. It's like, knock down anything that doesn't confirm what you already know or believe. And if you're going to be the best in the business, right, like, you're going to really, really help people, you can't have that attitude. You have to have an attitude that, like, you're going to get better. You're going to try new things. You're going to take on these new hard problems. And it's winding your way through that will take you to that next level. Now, obviously, from what is somebody missing who thinks that they can squat their way out of knee pain to go back to cricket? Well, it's all of the research data and skill set that comes with optimizing alignment, right? Like, there is a ton of research to demonstrate that knee valgus, right, knees bow in, associated with knee pain, dysfunction, and an increased risk of injury, including ACL ruptures, right? So if we know that, okay, well, do we have corrective strategies that will reduce knee valgus? Yes, right? And we have research around that too. So, even if you don't like the word posture, like posture got beaten up, right? You don't like the term.
Training is another one.
Yeah, functional training. Yeah, well, functional training. We'll get into that. The problem with that is that label got placed on a bunch of weird stuff and called functional.
Yeah.
But, when we start talking about alignment issues, and whether you want to use the word posture, alignment, or you just want to talk about these things as individual signs of dysfunction, right? Like, you got to address the things that are correlated with this increased risk of pain and injury. And the way to address those things is not just strength training. Like, that's just not going to work. Like, you're not going to squat your way out of a lack of dorsiflexion.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not going to happen, right? Yeah. And that one's super common. Like, the arguments over feet wide versus feet narrow and how deep should you squat. And I could literally, I think, reduce half of those arguments to, do you have enough dorsiflexion?
Yeah.
Because if you have enough dorsiflexion, you will be able to squat deeper, and you can probably squat without knee valgus being that bad. Obviously, the hip is involved too, and gluteus medius activation and all that stuff. But I mean, like, a loss of dorsiflexion is so ridiculously common. It's one of those things where it's like, if you guys don't know how to release and stretch your calves, maybe mobilize your ankle and do some tibialis anterior activation, you should learn. You should do that. Like, if you want to perform well, that should be in your bag of tricks.
Yeah.
So getting over complacency is the overarching answer to your question. But then, like, the specific answer to your question is, like, people have to take on this corrective exercise mantle. They have to understand that moving better is an important piece of moving more, right? Like, they can't just have move more, lift more. Like, there has to be some piece in there that's like, I'm also going to help myself move better.
Yeah.
Also say, and I'll take this one more aside, you can't just throw in mobility training.
Yeah.
Mobility is something you use to address assessed restrictions. If you're doing no assessment and just throwing random ass mobility techniques at people, you're also not going to be particularly effective.
Mhm.
Being too mobile is just as dangerous as being not mobile enough.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So we'll just talk about mobility versus stability.
Okay.
How did you want to explain the difference?
I have never separated those two things in my entire life.
Okay. So
I mean,
how
other than like exercise selection, right? So mobility would be release and lengthening, maybe joint mobilizations.
Yeah.
Stability might be activation techniques and, things like integration and stability techniques, right? Other than exercises, I've never looked at somebody and been like, oh, that's a mobility issue. Oh, that's a stability issue. No. The answer to that question is it mobility or stability? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. We got that out of the way.
I mean, there are some interesting caveats to that. If you're a physical therapist, I think we could start talking about mobility dominant versus stability dominant, and people are in pain, what exercises they need the most and stuff like that when we start talking about home exercise programs. And I think that's where, if I'm listening to, for example, Gray Cook of the FMS talk about mobility versus stability, I hope he's talking about patients, it's like that might have a place. But when we're talking about healthy individuals working on strength training, it is really hard to pretend that people separate into two camps. It's more like everybody has some mobility and some stability issues.
Yeah.
And it's like you need to address all of them.
Mm-hmm. And in all of this, how important is the nervous system?
Not. Okay, let me explain why I say that. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, what did he just say? One of the things that I've gotten very, very impassioned about in the last, let's say 5 years. This is the big problem that I've been trying. I was talking about you got to be willing to take on big problems, sink in and suck at things for a really long time. I've gotten a lot into information theory and decision theory, right? And there's a whole science to this.
Mm-hmm.
And putting it simply, it kind of comes down to what decisions do we need to make to optimize outcomes? What inputs affect those decisions, right? I cannot think of a time where I thought about the nervous system to change my intervention selection. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't look at somebody and go, wow, your nervous system is X, so I'm going to do Y. It sounds weird even when you say it that way, right? You're like, oh, your nervous system is squirrely. So, we're going to do this exercise. Look, the nervous system definitely controls all of it. But unless you're dealing with stroke patients, MS, something like Parkinson's, you don't deal with that for the most part. I mean, I do have a friend, Carl Sterling, who has Parkinson's regeneration, which is an amazing program for fitness for Parkinson's patients. I think it's incredible, great. He can talk about the nervous system and it matters, right?
Yeah.
General fitness?
No. Yeah.
What? I guess we could break down that there's different neurological components to stability and coordination versus maximum strength versus power and how motor units are recruited and all that stuff. But again, I actually don't need to think about the nervous system to make those decisions. If I know an athlete needs stability and coordination, strength and power, I'm going to think about stability, coordination, strength and power. And what the nervous system is doing during those things is not really my worry.
Yeah. The next question would be, how important is breathing when it comes to movement or, being stiff all day and does your breathing pattern impact that?
I don't think so.
No.
This is another one of those things where I'm like, breathing is one of those things that theoretically makes sense, but I have never seen it have a significant effect on objective outcome measures.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Go ahead, show me how your breathing intended techniques changed your overhead squat assessment.
Yeah.
it doesn't do I think you should breathe? Sure. I mean, I think breathing is important, but like, do I think about breathing when I train? No. Unless somebody's doing something weird, like not breathing, like, otherwise just breathe. Like,
Yeah.
you're fine. I mean, should you stop breathing and do something like the Valsalva maneuver when you're doing your heaviest lifts? Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the ways we stabilize the spine. Do I need to worry about that? Probably not that much.
Yeah.
I think if people are really honest with themselves, and part of the problem is nobody does assessment, which, I would say we need to get to evidence-based practice. A.
Yeah.
B would be like, if you're going to do things like mobility, corrective exercise, and of course, all clinical practice, assess. A surprising number of people do not assess and reassess. Like, it's a little frightening. If people assessed and reassessed, I don't think all of these breathing intended interventions would be as popular because they would see that they're not getting the outcome they want.
Yeah.
Let me just go on another aside, and I know I'm going on some tangents. Well, I feel better is not an objective outcome measure, right? Yeah. Short-term subjective changes in pain and feeling are not a reliable outcome measure. And I understand that reducing pain or feeling better might be the goal. But if you want that to happen long-term, you need to change objective outcome measures in the short term.
Yeah.
Right? I can rub somebody's back and tell them they're going to be just fine, and their pain will start to reduce. That's a fact. I wouldn't consider that therapy, though.
Yeah.
I could get somebody to take a few deep breaths and calm down, and their pain might get better in the moment.
Yeah.
That's not helping them when they leave the clinic. That's not therapy. Right? The same thing with electric stim or ice. These are palliative care. They help you to reduce pain in the moment, but you can't consider them a therapeutic intervention because they have no long-term carryover effects on an objective outcome measure, right? Yeah. So your thing about breathing, I think breathing probably affects short-term subjective outcome measures, right?
Yeah.
Unreliable short-term subjective pain measures, feelings, but has almost no effect on objective outcome measures unless we start talking about really disordered breathing patterns. Which I think we actually see that often.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I think we covered the next one. I was going to ask, people taking time off and then, they're like, okay, I'm going to get active again. And they go straight into squatting, sprinting, and then they're pushed back. Their body can't take it and they're, they hit rock bottom again. What do you think is the correct approach for those people who once, squatted, let's say, 300 pounds, and now they took a year off and they could sprint faster than a cheetah. And now, they're like, okay, I'm going to get on the treadmill and then start sprinting. And I'm going to load up the bar, put 225 on, and then squat. And then they either end up injuring themselves or they're stuck.
Yeah, so I can give you a Brentism, something that's not so research based on this, but maybe something that I hope is something that gets researched in the future. Give you like a little hot take, I guess, on the rehab side of this. But on the fitness side of this, let's start there. You have to gradually increase, and I mean, people underestimate how fast small increases add up. And the reason why I say that is, like, if somebody wants to get back to running, starting at 5 minutes is probably a good call.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not sore. Good. Run 5 minutes the next day. Still not sore. Good. Move it up to 6 minutes. Yeah. It won't take very long, adding a minute at a time, before you're back up to 15 minutes. And then once you get to 15 minutes, maybe you start adding 2 minutes at a time, right? Because it's all percentages, right? Yeah. So an increase from 5 minutes to 6 minutes is actually a 20% increase in activity. You got to keep that stuff in mind too, right? Yeah. So I think people need to initially start with thinking, let me start small, more frequent routines.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads to my hot take on physical therapy and getting back to play. That frequency piece, I'm realizing, is amazingly effective. So I do mostly at this point almost what I would call physical therapy consulting, right?
Yeah.
I don't see people
Yeah.
practice for 10 sessions, that type of thing. Usually people are coming to see me because nothing else has worked. And of course, I have this group of patients who've seen me for a very long time, and they call me whenever something happens, right? A lot of them play basketball or whatever, right? Because I play basketball. Let's say somebody throws out their back. Okay, well, they know what their self-management program is. And I'll be like, okay, get back on your self-management program if you haven't been doing it. I want you to do it twice a day. Okay?
Yeah.
And then as soon as they can, okay, I want you to start doing your lower body routine. Let's say their lower body routine was bridges, lunges, and some sort of plyometric exercise like box jumps. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, maybe on day 3, post back pain, I'm like, all right, try 1 set unweighted of your 3 leg exercises. Do the same thing the next day. Keep doing that until you're sore. If you get sore, then you can start taking a day off, right? And I want you to start loading it slowly.
Yeah.
The speed at which people come back because they didn't have the weeks of unloaded, unconditioned time is exponentially better.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, people are like throwing out their back, and 2 weeks later, they're back on the court. And you're like, whoa.
It's possible. Yeah.
Whoa. And not that it always works out that way, don't. Like, who all of a sudden throws out their back, has pain shooting down their right leg, and is losing sensation on the outside of their foot. For my physical therapists out there, like, that's probably not the person I'm talking about, but the person who gets that spasm is like limping off the court, holding their back, and their pain is relatively localized. You'll be surprised how fast they can come back if you get on top of the frequency and get on top of it quick. I think the same thing can be said for getting back into fitness. Like, you want to get back into a running routine and it's been a year. All right, well, start with some walking. Start with walking twice a day. Then start adding a couple minutes of jogging. Can you do that every day, right? Like, that frequency initially will help speed things up because remember, when the volume is that low, you're probably not getting that much breakdown, that much soreness. Now, as the workouts increase, hoping that you're progressing in this frequency, and you start becoming sore because it's starting to look more and more like a traditional workout, that's when you start adding back in the normal rest days. You start getting closer back to like 2 times a week for resistance training. That happens because you've been increasing the volume, which has obviously been increasing your recovery needs. Yeah. And you'll be surprised at how much faster that makes you better than trying to go back at it and getting injured again, or B, starting off light but on a traditional frequency scale. It takes a long time. Now, I know obviously people have work schedules and kid schedules, and the frequency thing can be a little rough, but like even some stuff at home, man, like you'd be surprised at how fast that stuff can make a difference.
100%. Yeah. A lot of the people that I see who have tried and then, they get stuck with either pain or they can't progress and they don't have the time to come see me. So I'll give them the home program, and within, a week or 2 weeks, they're back to like almost where they were before. Whether it was like squatting, running, and there was this I see this client, and I've been seeing him for over 2 years now, and he's close to 50. He could not walk down the stairs if my gym is in the basement, and his only goal was to be able to walk pain-free. And now he's squatting over 300 pounds, and that's not going to be everyone, but most people can do that, can get there, but it's at the end of the day, sticking to a routine and then just showing up, that matters a lot too.
Oh yeah, that is definitely true. Like you gotta work.
Yeah. Let's talk about corrective exercises. I mean, that's all we've been talking about. What's one thing you wish more corrective exercise specialists started doing?
Assessment. Like, Jesus, like I see so little assessment, like, and even worse than that, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I think that's another place where the Brookbush Institute is very unique, is we've done a very good job of matching assessment findings to an intervention plan. So if you see feet flattened during an overhead squat, we actually have a feet flattened strategy, right? Like you understand that this assessment finding is attached to this solution. I think there's a lot of assessments out there that unfortunately like, oh, you found this. Well, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to work on it. And you're like, what does that mean? Like there's no if this, then that algorithm. Like it's all just like big picture of like, oh, I did this. So I think, if we're going to say, what is the one thing I wish people did with corrective exercise, it would obviously be assessment, and obviously making sure that they're with a program that very carefully matches reliable solutions with assessment signs. That's super important if you plan on having reliable outcomes.
Yeah.
Some other stuff that I see in corrective exercise is like these really weird attempts at corrective interventions. Like you're not going to fix knee valgus by just throwing a band around somebody's knees.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Right? Like if you throw a band around somebody's knees and have them do squats, you're going to replace one compensation pattern with another. Like you have to do an assessment and start breaking down what the problems are per joint and address the individual joint issues.
Yeah.
Or like you're not going to get great improvement.
Yeah. And
people will complain and say stuff like, well, their knees looked better as soon as I put the band on. And, over the next 6-8 weeks, their squat looked better with and without the band. And it's like, yeah, but I could have fixed it in 20 minutes in one session.
Yeah.
And yes, it's more time invested up front, but you get the outcomes so much faster.
So much faster. And you're way more efficient, and it's way better. And I think that's where most of your progression videos, the regression to progression is what I call it.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes like you have to take a step back, like, okay, so first of all, why is the knee valgus there? And then you start correcting, right? And then you're there, you correct that. And that's way faster than just throwing a band around the knees, and like you said, that's just replacing one problem with another.
I would add this too, like here's a really harsh tell that I hold myself to, and I think all clinicians must hold themselves to if they even think that they're decent. But like we need to bring this in the fitness world. If the pattern you tried to correct looks the same when they come back the next session, you did nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
If you have no carryover effects, none, you did nothing.
Yeah.
There is no such thing, and this is a point that I will drive home until I die. This bullshit of like, oh, just keep doing it for like 6-8 weeks and it'll get better. If it didn't work the first time, it's not going to work. You need to change something. Now, that doesn't mean corrective exercise didn't work. It doesn't necessarily mean that the intervention you used couldn't be part of a plan, but you missed something. Yeah. If you have no carryover effect, you need to change something to get a carryover effect. Right? Like there's definitely some stuff out there where I'm just like, man, stop wasting people's time. Right? Like stop telling people that this is going to work in 8 weeks. Like, no. If it didn't work the first time, it's something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is something. Another one of my clients, she had knee pain and was seeing a physiotherapist. The physiotherapist, the typical IT band syndrome, started treating her for it. And she's like, okay, when can I move without pain? And he said, oh, it's because you've been active for years. It's going to take you 4 months. It literally took us about a week and a half.
Yeah.
Let's say 2 weeks at the most. She's squatting, weighted squats, lunging, no problems, moving, right? No pain. So that is something I feel like it was just generalized. Most people have IT band syndromes. Okay, yeah, that's probably what's causing the knee pain.
I could get into a whole thing. Like IT band syndrome is a diagnosis. You don't treat based on diagnosis.
Yeah.
And this is a problem that I have to deal with in my world of physical therapy, where I need to teach people that like We treat movement impairment. We do not treat pain. Diagnoses are just labels of pain. There's no such thing as an iliotibial band syndrome protocol that's going to work for all iliotibial band syndrome. Iliotibial band syndrome is a symptom of lower extremity dysfunction. And until you do a movement assessment, you're not going to know exactly where that lower extremity dysfunction is coming from. And unless you correct the lower extremity dysfunction, which may or may not be asymmetrical, you're not going to reduce the ITB symptoms, because that's all it really is a label of somebody's subjective symptoms about what they're feeling. And that, again, not to say that that's not important. Yes, the goal is to reduce somebody's symptoms, but the way you do that long term is by going up after objective, reliable outcome measures focused on improving impairments.
Yeah.
This is all that decision theory stuff, man. Like, it gets so... It's one of those, I get it. I should be more kind, right? Because there's stuff I say that to me sounds so simple. Mm-hmm. And when you say it, it is. But the problem is some of this stuff is counterintuitive. Yeah. Like if I tell a physical therapist that they don't treat pain, they treat impairments, they cringe. Yeah. They cringe. Like they don't know how to take that. They're like, what do you mean I don't treat pain? That's what I do for a living. And I'm like, like, not really, because like you can't, if we were just going to mask people's pain or reduce people's pain, we'd give everybody opioids, which is actually what caused the opioid crisis, right? It's going, no, you shouldn't be in pain, right? Well, opioids are very effective for pain. The secondary stuff is a problem, like addiction.
Anyway,
but like, decision theory, information theory, like this whole idea of how do we get the best possible outcome, like this is what I hope is the big contribution to this part of my body of work. Like I think it's super important.
No, I agree with you. We're just towards the end here, and so if I were to ask you, or if you were to ask yourself, and you sat down with Brent, who just started as a personal trainer, what's one thing you would tell the younger Brent?
That's a good question. Like what mistakes could I have prevented myself from making?
Yeah.
That was a pretty weird duck, man. I'd say when it comes to general personal training, like you got to try to apply what you learn and assess and reassess so that you are continually comparing interventions, seeing how they affect outcomes, and continually improving your selection process, right? Like you kind of have to, I guess we could say it's like you have to have a bit of a scientific approach. Like you should always be A/B testing. Like I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try it with a few different clients, and I'm going to see which one gets me the best outcome based on X assessment, right? I would say a lot of it is that. Like if you can get that early on, you will improve much faster than your peers. And it won't feel like it at first because you're making a lot of mistakes. But after a year or two, you will be so far ahead of your colleagues, it'll be silly if you just take a scientific approach.
Yeah.
As far as like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like other problems I had. Like I would say one thing I'm really big on, and I do work with some of the big box gyms, right? Good Life, Equinox, whatever. Lifetime, we have a great relationship with. Exos is an amazing company that we have a great relationship with. The reason why I think those relationships are so important for us is because I think every trainer should start in a big box gym. And everybody's like, I don't want to work for somebody, blah, 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 blah. Bro, in the beginning, you need a chance to get a lot of people in front of you. The only way you're going to get good is doing a lot of orientations, is doing a lot of sessions. And the only way you're going to get that is in a big box gym with a large marketing department who is continuously getting new members, who all need orientation sessions, who all need help on their fitness, who you can walk and do floor hours, and even in just those little 5-minute engagements during floor hours, becoming better at cueing and communicating. If people knew how horrible I was communicating with other humans, I would never have made it as a personal trainer on my own. I went to a performing arts academy. This is true. I was a jazz trombone player growing up. I spent so many hours in a practice room, I could barely talk to another human by the time I got out of high school and college, right? Like all of this little shit like that you have to learn, it's so hard independently when every session is like whether or not you're going to put a meal on the table, right? You're really not seeing that many sessions per week. You know, I did 10 years of 24-hour fitness, New York sports clubs, Equinox, where I was doing minimum 20 sessions a week.
Yeah.
You know, you add that up over 10 years, I have 1,000 plus hours of like session experience. So by the time I went independent, I was good at it. You know, like I knew how to run a session. I knew how to run an eval. I knew how to schedule schedule clients. Sorry. There for a little longer now, but you know, I knew how to get all that stuff done so that I wasn't making the silly mistakes when I was independent, and I was already a really good trainer. So I would say having a scientific approach, starting in a big box gym, continuing to get continuing education. I think another thing that people don't consider is you want to get bored really fast, stop learning.
Yeah.
If you don't have new shit to try on the floor, you just get bored. Like there is a lot of repetition to personal training. Like there is in any job, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At a certain point, you're like, yes, I have new client number 25 this month.
Yeah.
New client routines don't vary that much, right?
Yeah.
I am teaching, you know, a freaking plank for the 15th time this week, right? Like, but if you're learning new things, you get to try different new things. You go back to that scientific method I was talking about. You're A/B testing new things. You're keeping your mind active. You want to see how you can optimize a session. How can I make the best 60-minute performance of my life, right? Like you're continuing to do that. Like, yeah. So I guess at first when you asked me that, I was like, how would I change me? I was a weird kid. But what advice would I give a brand new trainer? I would say, you know, adopt a scientific approach right off the bat. Go work for a big box gym where you're going to get a lot of people in front of you, and then keep on the education piece. You know, I'm going to give myself a plug here. The Brookbush Institute was built on a Netflix style membership model.
Yeah.
The reason why I fell in love with that model, which you know is not common in our industry, it's mostly like buy a huge certification and that whole thing. But the reason why I loved the Netflix model is I was like, that's the way education should be. It should be affordable enough per month that you can keep it and learn at your own pace continuously. Whether that's an hour a week, an hour every other week, 4 hours a week, 2 hours a week, whatever you want to do, right? Doing it on your commute back and forth. If you're a New Yorker like I am, right? Like you're on your subway rides, you're knocking out a little education, right?
Yeah.
If you continue to do that continuing education thing, the job is more exciting.
It is. Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you.
And some shit's hard to learn, but like then you get past it and you got another tool in your tool belt.
And I think that's very important. When I started learning, right, and that's exactly what I would do. And also, your YouTube channel has a lot of great videos, great progressions, you know, for certain things. I started off with myself. Okay, what problems do I have, right? So if I assessed myself, okay, I have this problem. Why do I have it? And then, you know, most of the times your channel would have the answer. And if it didn't, okay, so what is it? And then I'll go back, you know, I'll keep assessing myself until I found the root cause, like, or what's causing it. And then I would go back, and then, you know, most of those progressions, first I tried them on myself. Okay, those worked. And then, you know, when I started seeing clients, okay, this client doesn't exactly need to start at this level. And then, but because I watched a lot of those videos and read a lot of the papers, and I was like, okay, you know, I can try this, I can test this. Oh, great, that works. And that's how I built my, I have a method that I apply in my training, and I call it the PREP method. So personalization is the first P. Everyone's different, right? Like they're going to have a different problem. They're going to have when it comes to treatment, right? Or not treatment, by a plan, they're going to start at a different level, right? And then it's research based, right? And results driven, research based, meaning I have to get you results as soon as possible.
Sure.
Right. I don't want you to be stuck with me for 6 months and still not be able to do a squat if that's your goal.
Right.
And how am I going to get that? I'm going to look at the research. Right. What does the research say about the condition that you're in right now? And then empowerment. How can I teach you to do these movements, or that, empower you with the knowledge or the tools so you can keep this lifelong? And then progression, like we discussed, you have to progress over time, and you have to keep learning, keep growing, and that's what I've been applying over the last 7 years, and it's working. And a lot of it came from the stuff that I learned from you and the other people in the industry, and it's really hard to find. There's a lot of noise out there.
Oh my God, so much noise. It's important, everything you said is important, like the results driven, outcome driven thing. I think the other thing, I think it's called the sharpshooter fallacy, or a lot of people do this, where the sharpshooter fallacy, for those of you guys who don't know what the sharpshooter fallacy is it's shooting the arrow and then drawing the target around where the arrow fits, right? So, and the way that this sharpshooter fallacy works is, like, people will do a fitness routine with a goal like weight loss, and then say that the routine worked because it made them feel better. Did they lose weight? And they're like, no, but they feel better. Well,
Yeah.
You didn't actually get the result you were going for. So I don't know how successful you were, really. Right? And
Exactly.
I think, obviously, I understand the personal trainer's plight, that it's not all their fault. You can work somebody out into the ground every day, and if they go and eat buffalo wings with blue cheese after they leave the gym, you're fighting an uphill battle, to say the least. But I think there is something to taking some accountability and being like, if we're going for result X, I'm going to get result X, and not just settle for result Y because it was this secondary thing that came out of nowhere that was a positive.
Yeah.
You got to get to your result. So again, that's part of the decision theory stuff, and being results oriented, really getting scientific approach.
I agree with you, and that's why, like, personalization is very important, right? It's based on their goals. Why did they come to me, right? If it's weight loss, how can I help them lose their weight as fast as possible? Safely, not just starve themselves.
Lose actual fat in a healthy way, not just drop pounds in a way that'll. You can put anybody on a ketogenic diet and they'll drop pounds in the first week, but that's not fat loss. So
yeah, exactly. So safely, and how can I, and also maintaining that weight loss, if it is weight loss. Are they just losing it for an event that's coming up, and then after the event they put twice as much on? So did you really help, right?
So Brent, style changes that people can maintain is a big part of this.
Yeah, exactly, right. So Brent, what does your training program look like right now?
My personal training program, like as in me personally. I've been working out a lot. I can tell you that I am a basketball player. I keep threatening to get back into a league. I haven't played in the league since COVID, since before COVID. Now, of course, I could just go sign up for a league. That's fine. But I would like to actually play well in a good league. With that being said, I do have a basketball training partner. In fact, I have a couple of them that I try to get in with. So my days, I'm basically on a 2-day split, right? Mm-hmm. One day is very intense, and that would be legs, followed by drills, basketball drills, followed by pickup games. And then I have an upper body and form shooting day. Yeah. And I try to get those in, each one twice a week. My leg training involves bridges, lunges, and single leg depth jumps right now. In fact, I posted a video the other day. One of my training partners is one of my best friends. Guy's like a brother to me. We were making fun of each other, but we posted some of the exercises we were doing with like the ball hip thrusts with rotation, and like doing reverse lunges with max velocity concentrics. And so those days are great. My training partner days are great. I really enjoy them, and I do work really, really hard. And then I have an upper body day where, right now it's drop sets, and I'm still experimenting with the idea of drop sets with both strength and stability exercises. So I'll do a chest, a back, some sort of chest drop set, some sort of back drop set. I generally don't do specific shoulder work with basketball. And I found this with a lot of overhead athletes, adding things like shoulder press and stuff like can quickly lead to like impingement syndrome, because we're already doing so much overhead.
Yeah.
It gets a little rough. And I guess you could say if I had optimal mobility and recruitment that I shouldn't have that, but it's hard to maintain that, right? Like,
yeah.
So, I'm working on dumbbell presses. I do right now single arm, suspension rows and pull-ups, and it's all the stuff that's on the site. Like I do follow the site. I mean, I do a ton of corrective exercise. I can tell you that. Every one of those days that I talked about starts with a very long corrective exercise session. I will often do corrective exercise on in-between days to help with my recovery. I've been pretty dedicated, but I'm a little older. My goal right now is, outside of potentially getting into a league and something, somewhat competitive. And I am in New York, so things tend to be a little bit more competitive out here. If I could get back into a competitive league, that would be great. But I think the bigger thing for me, and I'm going to get a little personal here, is I want to get and stay on the basketball court relatively competitive and enjoying it into my 50s. And I'm in my mid 40s now. My father died at 56 of diabetes. So if I can still be on the basketball court at 50, like I feel like I'm turning that clock. Like, I'm not going to go out that way. So, those are my big goals. Like, obviously basketball is my primary sport. I do a ton of strength training. I want a lot of longevity. And if I can be the best 50-year-old on the court, I want to be at 50. I want to be the best over 40-year-old on the court, like for sure. Right? I want to still be out there. So, and I can't just be the old guy who jacks up threes and barely makes it back on defense. Like if it gets to that point, I quit.
Yeah, I think you're on track to achieve some great things there. So where can, I guess, mostly coaches find you? So all the coaches that will be listening to this podcast and they want to learn about your systems and, where can they find you?
I mean, BrookbushInstitute.com is where all the education is. Obviously, we're on social media, so you can also find us on all social media channels. Yeah, I mean, we're basically online. I wish I could say we were doing a lot more live events, but COVID kind of put the kibosh on live education. We are trying to do live education when we can. And hopefully we see a little bit more of that in 2026. But for the most part, it's BrookbushInstitute.com. Obviously, we have that membership model. It's very affordable. Once you're a member, you have access to our certification programs, all of our courses, all of our videos. You mentioned YouTube. YouTube is basically 1/4 of our videos. Right? Yeah. So there's like 120 something full videos on YouTube. There are more than 500 videos on BrookbushInstitute.com. It's just a huge platform. It's obviously something I'm very proud of, and it's been my life's work. So
that's great. And thank you so much for your time today. And it was great talking to you. I learned a lot as always. And if you're ever in Canada, in Calgary, please come visit us.
I will definitely be in Canada, Calgary. That would be new.
That's the place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to visit Vancouver. We've been to Vancouver a couple times with workshops. One of my web devs is in Toronto. He might move to Montreal. I might end up back in Montreal. Montreal's a hip city.
Montreal. So I'll see you in Montreal. I'll be in Ottawa pretty soon. My wife's actually doing residency in Ottawa.
Okay.
So I'll be close to Montreal.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So let me know when you're there and I'll come visit you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brent. And it was great talking to you. And I hope you have a great day and a great week ahead. And yeah, stay in touch.
I will, for sure.